Today I'm doing a One Piece arc tier list, and I'd like to just say before it starts, these are my opinions, and some of these were very hard to put in order. Starting off, we have Romance Dawn. This arc earns a solid B in my eyes. It's simple, but it's strong. An introduction to the One Piece world, and we learn about Luffy's early life, how he gained the Gama Gama no Mi, and the significance of the straw hat. Zoro joins the crew after Luffy helps him, and the early fight scenes, while not too flashy, set the tone for the adventure. We also meet Helmeppo and Kobe, giving us our first glimpse of the Marines. It's not a mind-blowing arc, but I know a lot of people didn't like it. I thought it was pretty good. Next up is Orangetown, which I also rank a B. Here we meet Nami, learn about her goals while also encountering Buggy. Zoro gets his first real fight, and the arc has some fun, engaging battles. It's another solid installment that continues to build the world and the crew. Next we have Syrup Village, and another B. Usopp joins the crew, we get the Going Merry, and we see fun battle against Kuro and Jenga. Even though some people overlook this arc, I really enjoyed the humor and creativity. Then comes the Baratie, which I rank as an A. This arc introduces Sanji and his dream of finding the All Blue. It's packed with emotional and exciting moments, from Luffy fighting Don Krieg to Zoro's iconic duel with Mihawk, which shows just how far the crew still has to grow. And Sanji's heartfelt goodbye at the Baratie make this one of the more memorable arcs. The next arc is of course Arlong Park, which is an S+ for me. This arc is emotionally powerful and features some of those iconic moments in One Piece. We deep dive into Nami's heartbreaking backstory, and when Nami asks for help and Luffy puts the straw hat on her head and the rest of the straw hats walk into Arlong Park, it's an unforgettable moment. Luffy's destruction of the park and Nami officially joining the crew make this a perfect combination of action, emotion, and character development. Loguetown, in my opinion, is another B tier arc. It's brief, but it leaves a strong impression. Luffy receives his first bounty, and the scene where Luffy almost gets executed on the same platform as Roger adds some serious tension. On top of that, Dragon makes his first mysterious appearance, hinting at a larger story to come. Reverse Mountain also earns a B in my eyes. While it's short and not everyone loves it, it gives us a ton of story and foreshadowing in such a small package. We learn about Laboon and meet Crocus, who sailed with Goldie Roger, and finally, the Straw Hats enter the Grand Line, setting the stage for everything that follows. I know it's getting repetitive, but Whiskey Peak is another B in my eyes. Zoro fights an army of 100 bounty hunters. We get an introduction to Baroque Works and Nico Robin, and then Vivi starts traveling with the crew. Crocodile's also mentioned, hinting at future threats, and there's even a fun moment where Luffy fights Zoro. It's fun, action-packed, and also sets up the next big adventures. The next arc is Little Garden, which I'd also give a B. We get introduced to giants and very important characters in Dory and Brogy. Nami gets sick, which leads to the crew looking for a doctor, and becoming friends with the giants saves the Straw Hats later in Enies Lobby and Egghead. In my opinion, the wax trap though was a pretty annoying part of the arc, but other than that it was pretty solid. Next arc is Drum Island, which I'd give an A. The biggest problem is the weak villain, but we get Chopper's great backstory, we hear about Blackbeard, and we get the scene of the cherry blossoms in the snow. Now we're on Alabasta, and I give it an S. I don't think I like it as much as a lot of other people do, but I'd still put it an S only because it felt dragged out in the anime. But we get 3 fights against Crocodile, we meet Ace, and the crew gets Nico Robin. We also meet a lot of key characters that get reintroduced later, like Daz Bones, Bon Clay, Galdino, and the Nefertari family. Next arc is Jaya, which I'd give a B. Luffy meets Blackbeard, one-shots Bellamy, and we learn about Noland and the City of Gold. This is also the first time we get introduced to Doflamingo and Kuma. The arc was good, but it was kind of just like an intro to the next arc, which we have Skypiea, and I'd give it an A. I'm not even a massive fan of Skypiea, but it was a good arc with a lot of lore that still matters to this day. The ball ordeal was very annoying to me, but that's when the Straw Hats finally fought someone with Haki. The fight against Enel was definitely underwhelming because Luffy's Devil Fruit completely countered Enel's, but we got the legendary Enel face scene. Usopp also gets Dallas from the Sky Island that he uses to become stronger. Nico Robin deciphers a poneglyph, and this arc is still very important to the story, so I have to give it its respect. Next, we have my least favorite arc, Long Ring Long Land. I know a lot of people like it, and there's a lot of people who don't like it. In this arc, Aokiji gets introduced and fights Luffy. This arc gives us Afro Luffy, but other than that, I wasn't too happy with the arc. I get that it was kind of fun, but I didn't enjoy it. And then we get to Water 7, which I'd give an S. This whole saga was great. We get to see the crew fight the Frankie family after they beat down Usopp. We get Luffy versus Usopp, and we're introduced to CP9. They meet the Gali La and Iceberg, and we learn that the Going Merry is unable to be fixed, which is the cause of Luffy versus an Usopp fight. We get Frankie's backstory, and we meet Soge King. Sanji also fights using knives instead of his feet for the first time. We learn about Tom and how he built Roger's ship, and we learn about the Pluton blueprints. It's a great intro into the next arc, and it was pretty much perfect. And then we get to a real perfect arc, Enies Lobby, which is easily S+, and one of my favorite arcs in the entire show. This arc hits every beat perfectly. There's intense action, deep emotional stakes, and character growth across the board. Robin's iconic line, "I want to live," Luffy's Gear 2 and 3 transformations, Sogeking shooting down the government flag, and the emotional farewell to the Going Merry all stand out. That was the first time I teared up in this show, and one of the only times. Each Straw Hat gets moments to shine. Luffy vs Bluno and Rob Lucci, Zoro vs Kaku, Nami vs Khalifa, Chopper using Monster Point, and Sanji's Diable Jambe. It also reveals crucial information about the Void Century and Robin's tragic past. Enies Lobby is an arc that perfectly balanced story, action, heart, earning its S+ status without question. We also see a Buster Call for the first time. After that, we get the post-Enies Lobby arc, which is a solid A tier. The Straw Hats receive their bounties, Usopp rejoins the crew, and they set sail on their new ship, the Thousand Sunny. We also get glimpses at the bigger world. Garp appears, Dragon's involvement is hinted at, and Shanks and Whitebeard clash, cutting the sky in half. It's a satisfying wrap-up to the Water 7 saga, and they have a new shipwright and boat. Next up is Thriller Bark, which is also one of my least favorite arcs, earning a C. The arc has its moments, like introducing Brook, who quickly became one of my favorite characters, and hilarious moments like Usopp using his 10-ton hammer against Perona. Zoro also gets his iconic "nothing happened" line, and he gains a legendary sword, Shuzui. Unfortunately, the villains feel weak and forgettable, and the arc drags at times. It has some great comedic and spooky elements, but overall it's a weaker arc. I definitely thought I would enjoy it much more, but I just didn't. Sabaody, on the other hand, is an S tier arc and completely changes the story. The Worst Generation makes their first appearance, and we meet powerful characters like Kuma, Kizaru, and Sentomaru. Luffy punches a celestial dragon, which is a huge moment, and Rayleigh appears to remind us of the legend that is Roger. We also get to see Luffy team up with Kid and Law to take down the Marines. This is also the time where the Straw Hats are ultimately split up by Kuma, which sets up the time skip and leads to significant character growth for everyone. Next we get Amazon Lily, which is where Luffy lands, and I give it a B tier. While it's a short arc, it's still important. We meet Boa Hancock, who falls in love with Luffy, and we see him use Conqueror's Haki for the first time. He also learns the location of Ace, which jives the next part of the story. We also get to see where all the other Straw Hats got sent to. This arc was pretty good, but it was nothing special to me. Next up we get Impel Down, which is an A tier arc in my opinion. Luffy infiltrates the infamous underwater prison and reunites with old enemies like Dazbones, Bonkley, Galdino, and Crocodile. He also forms alliances with new characters like Ivankov and Inazuma. The battles against Magellan and his deadly poison push Luffy to his limits, and Blackbeard begins forming his new crew. While it has high tension and high stakes, it doesn't quite reach the emotional peaks of Enies Lobby. Next up is Marineford, a fan favorite, so I had to give it an S+ tier. Even though Marineford is in an S tier arc, it surprisingly isn't one of my favorites. But this arc is perfect. So much happens. Akainu, Whitebeard, Luffy using his Conqueror's Haki, Luffy punches Garp, Whitebeard dies, Ace dies, Sengoku holds down Garp from fighting Akainu, and we finally get to see some of the powers of the stronger characters who we didn't see yet. Admirals, Whitebeard, his whole crew, Mihawk, Doflamingo, and you also can't forget about Orange Jr. Blackbeard takes Whitebeard's Devil Fruit after he dies standing up. There are so many key moments in this arc, and it was perfect. This was also the start of Luffy's training arc, and you gain a lot of respect for Law and Jinbei. You also see Shanks end the war, which makes you speculate how powerful he actually is. Post-war is a cool arc, I'd give it an A. Luffy goes crazy and gets help from the Heart Pirates and Jinbei. Rayleigh shows up and trains Luffy. Sengoku resigns, and Aokiji and Akainu prepare to fight. The crew sees the news of Ace's death, and they all prepare to get stronger. Zoro begging Mihawk to train him, Frankie upgrades himself, Robin trains with the Revolutionary Army, Usopp trains with Hercules, Sanji learns to run on air, Chopper masters his forms, and Nami upgrades her weapon. We get the 3D2Y and the ringing of the Ox Bell. We also get more of Luffy's backstory and how he became brothers with Ace and Sabo. A very good way to wrap up the Seven War saga. Next is the return to Sabaody. This arc starts off a bit annoying with the fake Straw Hats and the people and Chopper actually thinking they're real ones. I don't know why, but it was just more annoying to me than funny. Watching Usopp using his new bullets in the bar was cool though. Brook has an awesome concert, and we see Luffy controlling his Conqueror's Haki. Zoro is seen with his new eye scar. We're introduced to Caribou, who seems to never leave the anime after this, and we also get to see the Straw Hats using their new powers against the pacifistas. We also see that Kuma helped defend the Thousand Sunny while the Straw Hats were away, which doesn't get explained until later in the anime. Next is my third least favorite arc, Fishman Island, which I'd give a C. It was too long, the villains were bad, and I'm not even a person who dislikes Sanji's act, but him constantly getting nosebleeds was pretty annoying. The upsides were Luffy knocking out 50,000 fishmen with Conqueror's Haki, and the backstory of Fisher Tiger and the Fishmen. The arc was just too long for what we got in my opinion. Up next is Punk Hazard, which I'd give a B. We get to see the results of Aokiji and Akainu's fight, we meet Momonosuke and Kinemon, Law and Luffy team up, and we get to watch Law vs Vergo. Caesar wasn't a scary villain and didn't feel serious ever, and it was a bit dragged out. This definitely just felt like a build-up arc for Dressrosa more than its own arc. Up next is Dressrosa, which I'd give an S. The only thing holding it back from S+ is its pacing. This arc had a lot of high highs. We got to see Sabo return, Gear 4, Kairos backstory, Law backstory, Doflamingo backstory, and we get Doflamingo as the main villain. Usopp was playing a major role, and Frankie vs Senor Pink was awesome. This was a great arc with only one major problem. We also get to see the Straw Hat Grand Fleet be built. I think this arc will get that biggest upgrade from the reanimation. The next arc is Zoe, which I'd give a B. We learn about Zunisha, the Mink tribe, and the Poneglyph hiding there, but in this arc there was no huge threat, since Jack is a fraud. Also, Sanji's gone from the crew once again. This arc was short and it was pretty good. Now we get to Whole Cake Island, which I'd give an S. Another arc that would have been S+ with better pacing, but it's still elite. The Luffy vs Katakuri fight would have been a lot better if it wasn't 22 episodes long, but we get some of the best villains in any arc, with Katakuri and Big Mom. We get emotional moments like the second backstory for Sanji, and his fight against Luffy. Brook takes the arc MVP for what he did with Big Mom, and Jinbei continues to help the Straw Hats. We learn more about Germa and see people like Capone Beige in action for the first time. I'd say the chase at the end was dragged on a bit, but other than that, this arc was almost perfect. Next to the Reverie, which I'd give an A. It's kind of a quick setup arc, but we learn about Sabo and the revolutionaries raiding Mary Joa, and we're also introduced to Imu. We see more of the revolutionary army, and this arc gives out a lot of information that is talked about more in the future arcs. Next up is Wano, and from what I've seen, it's either people hate it or they love it. Wano was very long and dragged on, but even with that, the insane animation, Gear 5, Zoro vs King, Kid and Law vs Big Mom, and so much more happen in this arc. We get Odin's lore and we meet Yamato, and we also get surprised when they figure out Kanjuro was the traitor all along. I know there's a lot of Wano haters, but there's so much more positive in this arc than there is negative. Another arc that would have been S+ with better pacing. And last but definitely not least, we have Egghead, which I'd give an S+ easily. Egghead quickly became my new favorite arc and making me tear up for the second time of watching this anime. Aokichi joins the Blackbeard Pirates, Law vs Blackbeard, Blackbeard sneaks Haboa Hancock, the Cross Guild's revealed, Lucia's wipe up the map, we see Sabo get chased by the Gorosei and Imu and survive. We get Luffy's rematch against Lucci, Garp vs Aokiji, so many backstabbing going on, Shanks one-shots Kid, and now that it's fully animated, the best backstory in the entire show, we get the return from Dory and Brogy, Luffy vs Kizaru, and Saint J. Garcia. And if you're not caught up to the manga, then don't listen to this. But while the Straw Hats try to escape, we see Zoro clash swords briefly with Nezuro. The Iron Giant awakens and uses Joy Boy's haki, and Vegapunk exposes the world government. So much happens in this arc and it was paced so well compared to other arcs. It definitely deserves to be at the top of my list. And that's it. So tell me how you guys feel with my tier list. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Tell me why. Also, if you made it this far, consider liking and subscribing. It'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching.